I know it's a little taboo to talk about money, but I think most of us would love an easy way to get that financial cushion, something that doesn't take a whole bunch of extra effort. Luckily, I think there is a way. It doesn't actually take more work for you to do, but it might be able to save you thousands. Now, I'm no official money expert, but I think it's pretty clear that a lot of us are draining our bank accounts just to get stuff. And given that, according to the LA Times, the average American has 300,000 belongings in their homes, I think a lot of us have a kind of addiction to accumulating belongings. And if we could just get control of our spending habits and our little tiny purchases that add up over time, we might be able to save up a lot more money without any more work time. Now, if you're new to the channel and you just stumbled across this video, I want you to know that I'm not coming from a judgmental place. I have a long history of over-purchasing, impulse shopping, but I do have years of experience researching human behavior and giving therapy to realize that if you just stop and take a second when you're about to make a purchase and think through a few things, slow down that process, you might be able to take back control and not make all these tiny little unnecessary purchases that might actually be ruining your life. So today I'm going to share 15 little things you should probably be telling yourself before you buy something. Some of my favorites are near the end, so I'd encourage you to stick around for it. The first question I ask myself is, are there any other things I'd rather spend this money on? Sometimes when I'm in the heat of the moment and I see something online and I think it's the most beautiful blouse, it's on sale, it feels providential, I just need to have it, I have an urge to buy it then and there. And believe me, I've done that many times. But what I often forget in those moments is that there might genuinely be other blouses that I've been eyeing for weeks or months that I would rather have, but I forget about them in that moment. So take a second and rack your brain for any belonging, even if it's another type of belonging, that you would rather purchase with that same money. Is there a dream item you kind of want to save up for? I think sometimes having a wish list helps because then you really know exactly what you're wanting and where each of the items you're considering fits in. But ultimately, I just think it's helpful to take a second and really think about whether this is really the priority for you right now. A second thing to tell yourself is that this item will lose value as soon as I buy it. And yes, there might be a return period, so you could return the item, but ultimately, once it becomes yours, it immediately starts to lose its value, both monetarily, but also emotionally. There's a lot of research on the brain around anticipation and reward, and quite often it's the anticipation that's actually more pleasurable than the reward itself. So just think about how when you buy this item, it will both monetarily start losing value. If you even try to sell it online, you probably won't get what you paid for it. And then on top of that, your joy and appreciation of the item will likely decrease over time. A third thing to ask yourself is, will I want this item as much as I do right now a year from now? I think sometimes, especially with short-term trends, it's easy to get excited about an object that realistically in a few months or a year, you're just not really gonna want. So I think asking myself this question reminds me, hey, this is very trendy. Realistically, I just wouldn't want it for that long. And if that's the case, it might not be worth your money. The next one is similar, but it taps into something slightly different, which is to ask yourself the question, in a year, will I be glad I bought this? What's the risk-reward analysis here? Is there a good chance that I'll actually regret this purchase later? I think always living in a way that's consistent with your values and the values of your future self, or at least what you think those values will be, is a great way to try to be intentional in the moment. Another question to ask yourself is, would I buy this item at full price? All the time, I justify purchases because things are on sale. And a lot of companies know this. They take advantage of this by marking things down and making you feel like you're getting a special deal. But ultimately, you are the one spending the money. So just make sure you're buying it because you really want it, not just because on principle it seems like a good deal. A related thing to ask yourself is, would I buy it if it were on final sale? I think this is a good question because so often I buy something with the idea that, oh, well, I can always return it later. And that's true. I return things all the time. It's a useful thing to do. But also, if I didn't have that option to return, if I didn't know for certain that I had that backup plan, I might purchase things less often overall. By pretending that the item is non-returnable, it just raises the bar. It makes me want to ensure that I'm buying something that I'm actually going to use and that I'm really going to love. A seventh thing to ask yourself is, if I do return it, how much time and energy will that take me? Sometimes I tell myself, oh, I can just return it if I don't like it. But realistically, returning things sometimes takes a while. Often you have to look up how to return it online, and sometimes it's less straightforward than you think. Plus then, if you need to ship it back, you need to save the box, then print out the label, tape it all up together, fill out forms potentially, and then drive to USPS or UPS and drop it off. Or if you can do it in person, you might stop by the store. It takes a while to get there, to find parking, and then when you get there, you're tempted to buy other things. So I think it's useful to really question whether it's worth the risk of that time lost to buy this thing just so you can make the decision later. Maybe you can make the decision now not to buy it. An eighth thing to ask yourself is, would I do something pretty inconvenient in order to get this? And this is more of just a thought experiment, but just think about maybe your least favorite chore, like putting the bottom sheet on your bed. Or imagine just some kind of task, like you need to walk a mile. Would you be willing to do that sort of thing in order to get this belonging? Because sometimes it's so easy to buy things, especially online, that you forget that if you had to put any effort into it, you would just not buy it at all. And I think this is also helpful because realistically, you did work for the money at some point so that you could buy this. And since that's at some point in the past, we don't think about that. But just think now, if you had to do something strenuous or annoying or just a little bit difficult in order to get this belonging, would you do it? Would you suffer that inconvenience for the sake of this object? Oftentimes, the answer is no. A ninth thing to ask yourself is, would I be willing to tell a judgmental person in my life that I bought this or how much money I spent on it? Think about maybe the most judgmental person in your life or the most frugal person in your life. Would you have that cringe factor if you had to tell them how much you spent on this belonging? Because that might be a good metric of whether it's really worth the money for you. If you're actually embarrassed to admit how much money you spent on something, you might want to reconsider it. A 10th thing to ask yourself is, who are the people in my life who are more important to me than this object? And this one feels very basic, very obvious. Of course, a human relationship is far more important than any physical belonging. But I think sometimes we forget to put that belonging in context and realize that that belonging is pretty insignificant in the grand scheme of life and your values. So juxtaposing it against a real life relationship that you really care about can help bring that object down to earth a little bit. You can take that power back away from the object and be in the driver's seat. You can decide what's important to you and where you want to place your hard-earned money. An 11th thing to ask yourself is, why am I buying this? What is the function of this behavior? And this one might take a little more self-reflection, but it's important to look internally and really just be honest with yourself. Why am I buying this? Because I can tell you, sometimes when I really ask myself that question, I have to face the reality that sometimes I'm buying something just to avoid some kind of negative emotion. Maybe it's anxiety or stress, or maybe it's something as simple as boredom. Because I notice so often I'm just scrolling on my phone, looking online, and I'm bombarded with a bunch of ads, and then I click on something, and I'm like, huh, that's cute. And in the moment, I just want to feel good, and so I just click on it and I buy it, rather than realizing, oh, maybe I'm just a little bored right now, or I want to have something to look forward to. But realistically, that's not a real thing to look forward to. That doesn't give my life meaning or true, deep joy. It's just something to distract. Other times I might buy something to impress other people, or because I think if I get this item, somebody else might notice it and think I'm cool, which now that I'm saying it out loud is not very cool at all. So I think it's just helpful to sit back and think about, why do I buy? Why do I shop? And is it really worth the cost? And is it really even helping me get to the place that implicitly I'm trying to get? Like, if I buy this belonging, is it actually going to make me cooler? Or will I just feel cooler? If I buy this, will it actually make my life more exciting and fun? Or will it just be a momentary passing thing? I think knowing yourself and your history, your patterns of behavior, it can all help you be more intentional about your actions in the future. That way, if I know why I tend to be shopping, then in the moment while I am shopping, I can stop myself and say, hey, wait a second, I'm just doing this because I'm a little bit bored right now. I don't need to do that. Another thing to ask yourself is, what are the big things that I'm saving up for? Maybe it's a home or a trip or some other major life experience that you've been wanting to have. But quite often we get all muddled up in these little day-to-day purchases that we forget that if we just hold back a bit, we could actually save up quite a bit more towards those bigger goals in life. So just take a second, and every time you're going to buy something little, think about the big things. Again, this is all stuff I'm still working on myself. Another question to ask yourself, and I love this one, is if I lost everything today, would this be among the first things I would repurchase in, say, the first month of collecting things again? Like if I truly lost all my belongings, would this be a priority for me? And if it's not a priority, maybe it's a sign that you might not need to buy it right now. And granted, I get it. Sometimes we do buy things for self-expression or to make a place more enjoyable. It's not as if everything in our homes needs to have a perfect purpose. But I do think this is just a nice little metric or sort of thought experiment about how important this object really would be to me. And then I'm able to kind of take pause and take back control. A 14th thing to tell yourself is to do something. Distract yourself. Engage in something else for a few minutes. Call a friend. Go on a walk. Do something artistic. Listen to some music. Watch your favorite show. Get some work done. Listen to a podcast. Clean your kitchen. Read a book. Cook something interesting. There are about a million things you can do to distract yourself in that moment. And I think sometimes the urges to buy something are very short-lived, actually. That if you just wait it out a bit, that urge might not be so strong, even in 2 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour, tomorrow. If you're able to step away and just engage with something else, when you return to it, you might not want it so badly. A 15th strategy is to figure out what's missing in your life and to fill it with something meaningful. And I get it, it's easier said than done. It's not as if you can just fix your entire life willy-nilly. But I do think that sometimes we get so stuck on autopilot and in the groove of the day-to-day routines we have that we forget to step back and think about, what have I been missing in my life? What am I craving? What am I wanting more of or less of? And try to fill those gaps with things that are meaningful or fulfilling to you. Say you're missing a sense of community. Maybe it means joining some kind of club or free meetup group. Maybe it means you could start volunteering or reaching out more to friends you already have. Maybe you could even take a class. If you're feeling bored or frustrated at your job, maybe it's time to apply for a new one or to get some kind of training that makes you eligible for different types of jobs. Or if you really can't leave your job, maybe it just means taking up a new hobby or engaging in life elsewhere. All of us are on a journey. We're navigating life. There are ebbs and flows, better times and worse times. But if there's something missing that's leading you to shop, I think it's important to take a second and just reckon with that and realize that there are probably actions you can take to make a difference. I will say even this YouTube channel was something like that for me. During the COVID lockdown, I was just kind of bored. I didn't know what to do with my time because I just wasn't being social and I didn't feel that sense of community. And so I started my YouTube channel. And now it's developed into this really amazing little community where I interact with a lot of you and it helps motivate me to declutter. And I'm just really grateful that I tried something out. I did not know that it would turn into kind of a job for me and something I'm really passionate about when I started. But I'm so glad I just took the risk and jumped right in. And sometimes trying something new might be just as simple as like educating yourself on something, buying a couple of books on something you're interested in, or listening to podcasts about it. There are so many ways in today's world to engage with society and everything around you, and it's just a matter of taking advantage of it. Again, I know easier said than done. We all have our own obstacles, and there might be financial barriers and challenges that you're facing along the way, but I do think quite often there's something we can do to fill that hole, to make ourselves feel happy and hopeful, instead of just trying to avoid the bad, filling our lives with more good stuff, so that we don't feel like we need to buy stuff to feel good. Anyway, I do just want to reiterate, I am so grateful for this community. I feel like so many of you I gradually recognize over time, and then when I see new faces, that's also exciting. And I also love seeing some of you engage with each other, where you're sharing ideas or experiences and relating on that. That to me is so exciting. And sometimes I do get some negative comments, and sometimes I want to take constructive criticism and grow from it. So I don't try to delete negative comments or anything, although I will hold the right to do that if I really feel like something's truly inappropriate. But I've also noticed there have been a couple of times with some of the comments that are a little bit more biting or just bother me a bit more. I don't tend to respond to those comments, and some of you have actually come to my rescue and explained my reasoning to the person, or just responded in a way where you acknowledged maybe you could understand where I was coming from. And those moments, I just feel so much less alone. I feel like I'm connecting with people and that we kind of get each other. And so I feel like this channel is gradually becoming more than just like me talking at a camera. It's really becoming a relationship, a back and forth, an interaction between me and you, but also some of you with each other. So I just want to say I'm really grateful for that. Also, if you enjoyed this video, I would really appreciate it if you would take a moment to hit the like button below. Doing that is a great way to support the channel, and I know maybe it's annoying to do, but it just does make a really big difference. So if you're willing to do it, it would mean a lot. Another thing is, if you want to see more videos on simple living, minimalism, and building an empowering mindset, please hit the subscribe button below and the bell alert notification button to be notified when new videos are coming out. That way you won't miss any. And of course, you can always choose not to watch them if you don't want to watch them. Anyway, that's pretty much all I have for you, but thank you so much for spending this little bit of time with me, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye!